Vandeham Shri Guru.
Parama Karuna Pahudvijana Nitai Goratanda
Hare Krishna. Welcome to Hare Krishna today. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for so kindly joining us every week for our Hare Krishna Today programs, where we discuss topics of the all-good personality of Godhead for our benefit and for the benefit of everyone. Today's topic is on this great personality, that is Sri Hanumanji. Hanumanji's position or part or his role in the Ramayana is so important that Valmiki Muni, the writer of the Sri Ramayana, this book that is called Ramayana, Valmiki Muni names an entire section after him. Hanumanji's name, before he got the name Hanuman, which we'll discuss today, his name was Sundara. And because his name is Sundara, that is one of the reasons why Valmiki Muni has named this section of the Ramayana, the Sundara Kanda. There are various, Kanda means section, and there are various sections of the Ramayana. For instance, the first is Balakanda, then Ayodhya Kanda, then Aranya Kanda. Balakanda means the childhood pastimes of the Lord. So like that, there are various sections. And this section, Sundara Kanda, which begins from the search for Mother Sita and ends with Hanuman coming back to give Lord Ramachandra the news and everyone leaving to go for the war to rescue Mother Sita. So that section of Ramayana is called Sundarakanda. Now there are three reasons, one of which we have already discussed because the name of Hanuman is Sundara. There are three main reasons. The first reason is because within this section of the Ramayana, Lord Ramachandra's beauty is described by Hanumanji. And also within this section, the second reason is that because Mother Sita's beauty is also described here when Hanuman sees her for the first time. So this section of the Ramayana is very, 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 very wonderful, and it is packed to the brim, so to speak, with many lessons for us. It is also beautiful because Sundara means beautiful. It is also beautiful because of Hanuman's character. And we see his character and his mood of servitorship being displayed to its utmost best within this section. It is said that what Hanuman did within one night, Sundarakanda, describes extensively Hanuman's journey in one night, searching the entire Lanka, what he did in that one night. In a sense, what Hanumanji did in that one night, whatever he did caused him to be worshipped until today, and he will be continued to be worshipped throughout many ages, forever. His name is immortal. So Hanumanji, his birth and the stories behind his birth are all there within the Ramayana, and they are very fascinating stories. We won't go into detail about the backstory to his birth, but his birth, he took birth in a city called Kishkinda, which is the city of the Vanaras, Vanaras meaning monkeys, and his mother's name was Anjana, and his father's name was Kesari. Kesari was a monkey king, and Anjana, his wife, both of them practiced or went for austerities for many, many years. And as a result of their austerities, Vayudev, the god of the wind, came to Anjana and blessed her with Hanuman as her son. And so too, that is one of the reasons why Hanumanji is called the son of the wind god, Pavanaputra. Hanumanji, we know children are very naughty, but you also know that monkeys are also very naughty. So you can imagine a monkey child, how naughty he must be. So Hanumanji, one day he was lying in his cradle and his mother told him, anytime you're hungry, you can eat the red fruit in the tree. So one day he's hungry and he sees a red fruit in the tree and he jumps to get it. Turns out that red fruit that he was seeing wasn't a red fruit at all, but it was the sun. But mistaking it to be a red fruit, he jumped after the sun and swallows the sun. Now you can imagine the sun is no small object that if it goes missing, no one would notice. Everyone noticed. The Devatas and everyone, everyone was confused. It was chaos all over. So they ran to the king of the Devatas, Indra, and told him that Surya is missing. What? How can Surya be missing? Indra was beside himself. How can Surya be missing? So he jumped on his elephant and he went directly where Surya was supposed to be. And there he sees there's a monkey there with Surya in his mouth. So the monkey, when he sees Airavata, the elephant carrier of Indra, he thinks it's a white fruit. So he goes to jump on Airavata to eat him also. And Indra, because he was scared, just reflex action automatically. He took out his weapon, Thunderbolt, Vajra it's called, and hit Hanumanji on his cheek, on his chin, sorry. And that broke his chin. So Hanu means broken chin. So that is why Hanumanji got the name Hanuman, because of his broken chin. So he's free falling back down to the earth and he's unconscious. And Vayudev, he gets really angry because Indra, he didn't need to harm his son. So Vayudev collects Hanuman, goes to a nearby cave, and he's so angry he summons all the air from the entire universe. Now everyone is suffocating. The demigods and Devatas, they are totally confused. They don't know what's going on. So they rush to Brahma, and Brahma says, we should all go to Vayudev and ask him what's wrong. So they go to Vayudev, and Vayudev says that unless you revive my son, I won't give back air to the entire universe. So they say, no problem, we'll give all blessings. So Vayudev, he returns air to the entire universe. And all the Devatas, it's described, usually in our mandirs, we see so many Devatas, Devis and Devatas on our altars. And we think that's a lot. But there are many more Devatas. It's described that there are 33 million Devatas in charge of various aspects of maintaining this material world. So there are 33 million Devatas, and all of them came there at that same moment. And all of them gave Hanumanji blessings. You can imagine that? 33 million Devatas giving blessings. You can imagine how powerful Hanumanji became. Now they all give him special blessings. And Brahmaji gives him one very special blessing. He gives him a diamond necklace. And he tells Hanuman that no one will be able to see this diamond necklace. But the moment someone comes and is able to see it, recognize that that person will truly be your master. And years later, when Hanumanji meets Lord Ramachandra for the first time, Lord Ramachandra spots this necklace. And when Hanumanji realizes this, Hanumanji decides, this is my master, and he offers his life at the feet of Lord Ramachandra. Now, with blessings of 33 million Devatas, Hanumanji has become even more naughty. He's a child still. And he begins troubling sages. He would pull their feet from under the water, hide their clothes. They would have to run out of the water and beg him, please for our clothes, please for our clothes. But one day he did something extremely naughty. So a sage, he came out it was early morning, so he came out his door. He wanted to go and answer nature's call. And he was appalled at the sight of this front door. When he opened his front door, there's a tiger tied to the post of his balcony, and he was scared. The tiger was roaring and everything. So who has the power to tie a tiger to a post. So he closed the door and he went back inside. So he decides, I'll go through the back door. When he opens the back door, there's an elephant there. So he closed the door. He doesn't know what to do, and he wants to go and answer nature's call. Nature is calling. Her call gets louder and louder, louder, meaning he wants to go to the washroom. So what should he do? So he looks out the window and he sees Hanuman laughing in the corner, totally bursting himself in laughter. And he realizes this little boy, he needs some protection, otherwise he'll create havoc. So usually we all have special abilities, but sometimes we don't know how to utilize those abilities. So we need persons that can help us to channelize those abilities. And Hanumanji will get such a person in his life later on, which we'll discuss. So the sages, they curse him, a protective curse, that you will forget your powers until you need them the most, and someone will remind you at that time. So Hanumanji, remember, he was a very naughty kid. At that time, he sobered up. He walked back home. His father, Kesari, was surprised. Hanumanji never walked back home. So he was surprised, what happened? So Hanumanji says, I want to study. So his father was surprised. He was like, okay, no problem. So who would teach him? And Suryadev, the god of the sun, had blessed him that when he was ready, he would be his teacher. So he approached Suryadev and asked him for a place in his school. Surya said, I'm sorry, but there is no space, there is no benches, there is no desk and table available for you. So Surya, he has a huge chariot with millions of sages there that he usually teaches. Surya's Institute for Higher Education. So Hanumanji says, no, I didn't ask you for all of that. All I wanted to know is if you would be willing to teach me. Surya says, no problem. Hanumanji says, okay, I'll manage. Hanumanji, he does something amazing. He flies backwards, pacing Surya at the speed of the sun, listening to what Surya is saying. Never asked Suryadev to repeat a single word. Within 60 sun cycles, Hanumanji memorizes everything and learns everything that there is to be learned. Such is the level of his concentration. So usually when we have to learn something, we always inquire about our facilities, whether we have AC. We always want facilities, but Hanumanji is showing us what's more important is the eagerness to learn and the attention to learn. So we can fast forward. Hanumanji, he grows up and eventually so many pastimes happen. But we'll skip ahead to the moment that the Vanaras, the monkeys, they're at the end of the tip of India, Rameshwaram, and they're before this huge Indian Ocean. They don't know where Mother Sita is. They've been searching for 2 months and they're utterly dejected. And in that dejection, they started reciting Ramayana, and by reciting Ramayana, they came across the name Jatayu. And by hearing the name Jatayu, this one bird, Sampati, who was overlooking them, his ears lit up. This was his brother. Jatayu was his brother. So he says, you guys know Jatayu? He said, yes, of course we know Jatayu. And then Sampati decides to help them, and he tells them that Sita is over there in Lanka. But now, the monkeys, they have an issue. Who's going to jump over an 800-mile ocean? So they all express their inabilities to cross this vast ocean. With Hanumanji, he was silent, sitting in a corner. Jambavan, who was a bear, he had the form of a bear. He was a very senior personality in the army, so they consulted him, and Jambavan said that, Hanuman, you are the person to do this. It is important to note that Jambavan, he also speaks about his abilities. When Jambavan was younger, and the Lord appeared in the form of Vamana, Lord Vishnu in the form of Vamana. As Lord Vamana, the Lord, he had to reclaim the universe from the demon king Bali. This is not to be confused with Vali from the Ramayana. There are 2 different personalities, Bali and Vali, B and V. So yeah, Vali from Ramayana and Bali from Vamana Dev's pastime. Bali happens to be the grandson of Prahalad, from Prahalad and Nrsimha pastime. So Bali had conquered the entire universe and put out the Devatas, so Vamana, to give back the Devatas their the heavenly kingdoms. He went to Bali to ask for charity, and in charity he asked for 3 spaces of land, and in that 3 footsteps of land and as Bali agreed, I mean, three spaces of land is nothing. So Vamana Dev, he expands himself huge. And with 2 footsteps, he covers the lower planetary systems and the higher planetary systems, and he has nowhere to put his 3rd foot. And there's a wonderful pastime of where he puts his 3rd step. But we can imagine how huge Lord Vamana's feet were. Jambavan, he circumambulates, goes around, does parikram of the Lord's feet, that huge feet, 21 times in less than 8 seconds. I think that's the calculation, but it's less than 8 seconds. So you can imagine how powerful he was. But now he's old, he can't do this. Usually, now he's inspiring Hanuman. So usually within our world today, some of us have this mentality that if I can't do it, then no one can. To hell with Sita and Ram, if I can't do it, no one can. Jambavan's mood is one of creating achievers. There's no use in being a leader if we can't create leaders. There's no use in being an achiever if we can't create achievers. Leadership is about creating legacy, inspiring others to also become leaders. To the world's view, Hanumanji is the hero of Ramayana. But for Hanuman, Jambavan is his hero because Jambavan inspired him. So this humility of Jambavan can teach us a lot. He is what's called an invisible leader. We don't hear much about Jambavan, but yet still he plays a very important role within this entire pastime. Without him, none of the other monkeys knew of Hanuman's powers. Who would have reminded Hanuman about his powers for him to go and achieve such a great, wonderful achievement? So we can see Jambavan inspires Hanuman to become an achiever. Hanuman becomes the hero of Ramayana. Later on, in the next age, Dwapar Yuga, when the Mahabharata pastime is unfolding, Hanuman is also there within the Mahabharata. But he doesn't fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. All he does is he sits on the chariot of Arjuna and he's roaring. That's all he does. He's on the flag of Arjuna. That's all he does. He doesn't take part in the war at all, although he could. What does he do? He inspires Bhima to become an achiever. And what does Bhima do? Bhima kills all of the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. So like that, we see this creating achievers rather than just being an achiever. So this mood of creating legacy, it requires a certain amount of humility. So Hanumanji, he realizes his powers, he jumps over the ocean, but before he jumps, he prays to Lord Ramachandra, and he expresses that he can do anything for the service of Lord Ramachandra. Hanumanji, he jumps. And he encounters several obstacles. The first is a golden mountain that tells him, slow down, take some rest. Hanumanji, we're doing an extremely summarized version of the pastime. So he tells him, thank you very much for your hospitality. He touches the mountain and he says, I don't have time for my own comforts. And he goes on with his mission. Then he encounters a snake demon called Surasa. Surasa, she opens her mouth and she says that she has a boon from Brahma that anyone who crosses over here has to go within her mouth. Hanumanji was like, well, move from here, this is an urgent mission. So he expands himself bigger, Surasa expands bigger, he expands bigger, Surasa expands bigger. Like that they were competing who would be bigger. Hanumanji was like, this is useless. So he makes himself as small as a mosquito, flies into her mouth, flies out back. And he says, Mother, you said that I should enter your mouth. You didn't say anything about eating me. So I've entered your mouth and I've come out back. Surasa is pleased and she blesses Hanuman. Hanuman goes on. And the next obstacle he encounters was a demon called Singhika. Singhika had a special ability to capture the shadow of someone. So as Hanumanji was flying, his shadow was on the ocean. Singhika captured that shadow and pulled Hanumanji down within her mouth. Hanumanji burst out of her stomach and he continues on to his mission. He goes to Lanka and we know what happens after that. There are 5 lessons that we'll be focusing on that Hanumanji is teaching us from his jump. The first obstacle, the 5 obstacles that teach us 5 lessons. The first obstacle is the obstacle of lacking of confidence, or the lack of confidence and self-doubt. the monkeys that they were there, when they were there before the ocean, they had doubts in their abilities. They didn't know what to do. Even Hanumanji, he was doubting whether I'd be able to jump or not. We all go through this issue. These lessons especially can apply to situations where we are starting something new, starting a new mission, a new project, embarking on anything. First obstacle that we have is that we lack confidence, and there's some self-doubt that is there. Sometimes the mission may seem like impossible. So what do we need in those times? We need persons like Jambavan to be like mentors, to teach us how to channelize our powers. Remember, Hanumanji didn't know how to channel his powers when he was little. Jambavan helped him to channel those powers in service of Lord Ramachandra. So we need persons like Jambavan to guide us and teach us, to remind us of our past victories, to encourage us. So we all need such mentors within our lives. That's the first obstacle. The second obstacle was the vast ocean. This vast ocean represents this mentality that we are here and our goal is way over there. Where we're at and where our destination is. Usually it's like a huge ocean. It's so hard to cross. So how do we get over this? We need to take the leap of faith. But before we take this leap, what do we need to do? We need to pray. Prayer empowers us. It prepares the mind for the mental jump that is going to happen. Why is this prayer important? What does prayer do? This ocean can represent Deha Abhiman, or pride about one's own greatness. The Vanaras, they all expressing their inability to cross this ocean of Abhiman or pride. Many personalities, even ourselves, we struggle with crossing over this ocean of pride. But Hanumanji, how does he teach us to cross over this ocean? He considers himself Rama's arrow. What does this mean? He considers himself the instrument of Lord Ramachandra. When we think ourselves the doer, it's very hard for us. But if we consider ourselves instruments within the hands of our higher power, of God, then it becomes easier. We are the instrument, not the doer. We are not the cause, but the instrument. It's very important. That is why it said Hanuman considered himself Rama's arrow. He didn't need to exert the force for him to be pushed forward. That was Rama's responsibility. Rama took out this arrow and shot it. The arrow's responsibility is simply to follow within the force that has been exerted by the bow. So like that, if we consider ourselves instruments and not causes or doers, then we begin to inculcate this feeling of humility. The third obstacle is the golden mountain that appeared, telling Hanuman, take a rest, take a break. What does this mountain represent? It represents a mental block. It's called the golden mountain block. What does this mountain do? It slows us down, warning us that if you go at such a frantic and fast pace, then something would happen. You would burn out yourself. And take breaks. This mental block may come in various forms, like it may be in a mental breakdown, it may be a want for comfort, or it might be distractions or temptations that come in our way. But what should we do to overcome this obstacle? What we need to do is to have a single-minded focus on the goal. The mission is more important than comfort, and no temptation is worth giving up this goal that we have. Once it's a positive goal, of course. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 14, this verse comes, Tasmad ekena manasa bhagavat sattvatam pati shrotavya kirtitavyascha dheya pujascha nityada. Therefore, translation goes as follows. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of devotees. What is the important point here? One pointed attention. Ekena manasa. This ekena manasa is very important. Whether we are pursuing a spiritual path or any project, any mission that we're pursuing, we need to be we have a single-minded focus on our goal. one pointed attention. Within the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in chapter 7, text 28, Bhajante mam dridha vrataha. What does this mean? They engage in my service. Krishna is saying they engage in my service with determination. Dridha vrataha. Dridha vrata. That is the most important thing. Determination. We must have determination. Else we'll fall away. So that is how we overcome the third obstacle. Determination. Dridha vrata ekena manasa. One pointed attention. Obstacle 4. This demon, Surasa. She represents the competitive mentality. People like Surasa love to instigate this mentality, and this mentality causes us to lose sight of our goal. We begin competing and all of these things. It's needless. Competition is needless. Don't let it consume us at the risk of giving up our goal. So what do we need to do? Hanuman just made himself small. You be big, I'll be small. My mission is more important. So let go of the desire to prove our superiority, but rather we should embrace the desire, the superior desire, to prioritize our mission. Let go of the desire to prove our superiority and embrace the superior desire of prioritizing our mission. The fifth obstacle is envy. Envy is the most dangerous vice because it cannot be used in any way in the Lord's service. Envy translates to fault finding. Fault finding equals cruelty. We become cruel to different persons. Usually says success breeds enemies. When persons see our success, or when we see other person's success, we become jealous or we become envious of that success. No matter how high we go, there will always be some fault. We are humans. We should recognize this. Whether we are high or somebody else is high, we'll always have some fault. And instead of admiring the good qualities of those persons, the success of those persons, we tend to find fault. Because we find fault, we cannot be inspired by their success. So what should we do? Hanuman teaches us, there is no other way of dealing with envy than to destroy it immediately. Check it immediately. Because if we start learning to celebrate the success of others, then we open our minds to become inspired by them. There's something that we can learn from them then. If we find fault, then there's nothing we can learn. But if we are inspired and we celebrate their success and we are inspired by them, then we can also become successful. Celebrating their success leads to us celebrating our success. Whereas plotting for their failure is merely plotting for our own failure. We should recognize that envy should not exist. Every good quality in each one of us is but a spark of the Lord's splendor. It's a spark of Lord Ram's splendor. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that I am the strength of the strong. Balam balavatam chaham. So if each one of our good qualities are but sparks of Krishna's splendor, then we should appreciate those good qualities. So with that, these are 5 lessons that we can learn from Lord Hanuman's pastime of jumping over the ocean. And if we can apply these lessons to our lives, then we can become successful somehow or the other in our service to the Lord. Hanumanji, he represents utmost servitude to Lord Ramachandra's lotus feet. And as recently was Hanuman Jayanti, we pray to Lord Hanumanji to bless us with that mood of service so that we can serve our lords, becoming but instruments within his hand. And by that, through that mood, we can achieve great things. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
पराक्रम से गूंजे त्रिभुवन धरती पाताल दुष्ट भंजन जल सागर करे पराजय क्रंदन त्रिका निरंतर लोक जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपी सति लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा
बहुविधि सब संग